Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and I'm pleased to invite you to the next session in the Illini Cloud webinar series featuring Otus Solutions. Again, my name is Jat Pannu. I'm the Business and Operations Lead for the Illini Cloud, and joining us is Tim from Otus, who will be taking us through some of the great things that they're doing. This is an interactive session, so please feel free to type any questions into the chat. And if we're monitoring the chat, we may answer them in stride or address them at the end of the session. Or feel free to unmute yourself and just ask a question as you need to. Again, this is very informal, so it's meant to be in a brown bag kind of structure. So we're not asking people to stand on ceremony. If you have a question, you want to ask it, go ahead and do so. For those that are new, the Illini Cloud webinar series are posted on YouTube. Again, they're recorded, they're posted on YouTube, and you can find them under the Illini Cloud YouTube channel. And they are conducted typically every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Time, based upon kind of different scheduling options and what have you. And in the announcement email, you can find the list of upcoming webinars. With that, if there aren't any questions, I'll turn it over to you, Tim, and you can feel free to take control of the screen and take us through what you have for us today.
Sounds great. So Jad, thanks so much for the introduction. I appreciate everybody's time today to join. Just from a logistical standpoint, I'm a little bit new here to Zoom, so I'm guessing, Jad, that I just grabbed this nice pretty green screen share button that's at the bottom of my page. And right. I'll go ahead and share my Chrome screen. So let me know if you guys are seeing a cover page okay right now that just says Meet Otus. Is that coming in okay?
Coming in great.
Okay, perfect. Well, again, thanks for the intro. Excited to share some more information with everybody on the line today about Otus. I'm not sure you may have heard about us. You may not have, which wouldn't be surprising either, considering Otus is a relatively new product out there on the K-12 EdTech market. So there's really three things that I want to give everybody for today. A brief introduction and overview of company background, features, and functionality that we support, and maybe more notably, why we're doing what we're doing in K-12 education, before we look specifically at the product. We'll jump into a little bit of a product walkthrough and demo so that we can get your eyes on the system, and then, of course, an opportunity to ask as many questions as you have throughout the session, or if you prefer to save, Q&A towards the end, that's fine as well. But as far as a quick intro goes, again, my name's Tim Brandau. I manage operations here at Otus, on top of coming from education, which is pretty much a theme and trend of our full team. I taught middle school social studies for years, as well as serving as a tech coach in Maryland, where I grew up before I migrated my way here out west into the greater Chicago area. And like I said, this product really does come from educators, and obviously a lot of ed tech products will claim that. But what Otus, the origins of our company come from a couple folks here on the north side in the suburbs of Chicago about 5 years ago. Chris Hull and Pete Helfers here, who were working together at a middle school and applied for, received, and implemented a grant for one-to-one in their classrooms. So they quickly discovered, once they got all this new great technology and these iPads, that they ended up running into what we found to be a pretty common scenario for a lot of districts. And that's that there's a ton of ed tech products on the market, and that's a blessing because there's a lot of wonderful things that teachers can do once you introduce technology to the classroom, but that can also present some challenges. Let's take an example. If I want to track behavior and participation in my classroom, I might download and start using ClassDojo. Then I'm recording my grades and attendance in PowerSchool. I'm keeping track of assignment deadlines on my Google Calendar. I'm texting reminders about next week's field trip to my families on Remind. I'm doing writing assignments on Google Docs. Now I'm getting my NWEA or PARC or AIMSweb scores back, and I'm looking at those in other locations. And I might send some kids that are struggling some more practice from something like Khan Academy academy. You get the idea here that really quickly teacher, administrator, and kids' plates with technology being introduced to the classroom gets very, very chaotic very, very quickly. And it leaves a lot of kids, teachers, and admins, frankly, feeling like this, that they're just banging away at their computers and spending more time managing technology than they actually are learning or helping support kids. So the problem that we found with a lot of districts is, how am I supposed to differentiate personalized learning, make evidence-based decisions, if there's 5 different places I'm looking to figure out how kids are doing, and then 5 other tools or pieces of technology that I'm using to do something about it? And then, a lot of teachers end up feeling like this. Does it count as differentiated instruction if I print their worksheets on different colored paper? So the solution that we provide is one platform that gives you 4 types of products and solutions in one place. All of your classroom management and traditional LMS functionality, digital assessment engine, as well as a full data analytics warehouse, all together in a common platform. And the goal there for us is, once we can consolidate some of this ed tech into one place for teachers, students, parents, and administrators, now we're able to gather, analyze, and then actually do something about the performance data that we're collecting and looking at in one platform, rather than hopping around to 5 or 6 places, and rather than having students working on managing 3 or 4 different logins and systems for the 4 different teachers that they're going to see throughout the course of that day. So that's really the origin and kind of background and inspiration for the product. Maybe now is a good opportunity for me to really pause very briefly. I didn't want to bore everybody to death too much with PowerPoint, but I thought it was important that we start with the framework of what we're going to be talking about in more detail once we jump onto the demo system. Does anybody have any questions so far based on what you've seen that I can quickly answer before we hop into the demo portion of the session?
I'd say let's keep going.
Okay, sounds good. We'll keep the ball moving here then, and I'll log in first as a teacher, and moving with that theme that we've set up with Otus to gather, analyze, act. That's kind of the theme that I'll walk everybody through with this product overview. I'm going to log in here as a teacher first, and you can see here we give a few different options for folks gaining access and logging into the system. Single sign-on with Google if you use Google Classroom, or something like Clever or Microsoft 360. Our goal is to cut down the number of tools that you're using, not add another login and password that your teachers and students are going to be asked to remember. So here on my home screen, I'm logged in here as Mrs. Bloom, who is just your, fake everyday teacher. And my home screen is first going to be managed by these different tiles that you're seeing on the page. If I'm a self-contained elementary school teacher, it might be homeroom, English, science, math. If I'm a 7th grade social studies teacher, which is my previous life, it'll be my advisory group, 1st, 3rd, 5th period, so on and so forth. You get the idea. And let's say first, we'll look at this through the context of a teacher starting their day. As I'm working on my language arts class, maybe the first thing I do is take attendance. This all integrates with your student information system as well, so that teachers aren't doing double data entry for things like assessments, grades, and attendance. So I can really quickly, do my attendance. I can add some additional notes, record data that way. Then maybe I'm going to look at my class bulletin board in terms of announcements, homework, things that we're going to be covering or working on that date. And then if I come here to the student view as kids are getting settled in, maybe I just want to record some behavioral type of data. And I just want to make a note here that I have a couple folks that came to class today not prepared. These names might look familiar if you're a Cubs fan. A lot of our development folks that create our fake demo students happen to be big Cubby fans as well. So in terms of gathering data, classroom management tools like the ones we just saw, a lesson planning tool so that we can then get kids working together here in Otus. So let's say today we have a lesson that we're doing on the American Revolution, so they can take a look at some directions there. Looks like first they're going to be asked to go to their bookshelf and watch a video that we've stored there for them. Then they're going to blog about what they saw. They're going to answer a poll question, and then they're going to get started on an assignment in the assessment tool. So let's kind of walk through what the process would look like there for the kid now that we've assigned them some work. And kids obviously would be accessing all this information with their own Otus account. They can come here to the bookshelf, which is the place that teachers use to store digital content and resources for students, whether it's a web link, a YouTube video, chapter of an online textbook, whatever it might be. Here we can kind of streamline all those different types of content providers and resources into one place, so that kids aren't being asked to remember 12 different websites. They're just coming to their bookshelf and seeing what teachers have curated for them for different classes. So here I might be asked to watch this YouTube video, and then I'm going to go blog about it as a student. And then I'm going to answer, this poll question that we have here about what do I think about, the revolution. And then we'll get started here on this classwork that was assigned to me here in assessments. So here's my classwork for today. And as a teacher, I can go and assign that to whatever classes or students I need to. And then students will gain access to something that looks something like this. Our assessment module is probably one of the most sophisticated on the market right now. It's been one of our biggest areas of development over the past 8 months, where you now have access to over 60 different types of questions that teachers can build from, as well as an item bank that we give you off the top of over 60,000 Common Core associated questions. So if a district wants to build a benchmark using Common Core to track more of a standards-based approach from reporting, they can do that. Or individual teachers can create assignments and workflows that look kind of like this. This might look familiar. We actually built this engine through the same provider that Park uses. So, you might think that this looks a little familiar, where we can build things like drag and drop, your traditional multiple choice, traditional fill in the blank type of questions, annotate with short answers. And then we can also give some other accessibility options, like having students record their work. Your folks that are in music or foreign language are going to love those options here, so that folks can record their thoughts and then teachers can, play them back another time. So that's a good look at, some of the options that we have available in terms of gathering data, digital assessments, polls, blogs, our lesson planning tool, as well as capturing that assessment, behavior, and engagement level data here on the class's viewpoint. The idea there is that for any piece of data that a teacher or district wants to collect, we can do all those things in one place rather than 5 or 6. Now, the next piece comes to analyzing. Now that I'm gathering all of this data in one place, the benefit there is that I have access to all of this data in one place as well. So anything that I'm doing in the system is going to be visible for me as a teacher here in the analytics section. And this is also relayed to administrative level accounts. So building level principals can run their own analytics on engagement and proficiency data. Your assistant soups and superintendent can run growth over time analysis on our behavior recognitions or growth on Park or NWEA testing. Whatever type of third-party resources you guys use also gets dropped here into the system. The left-hand side is all that engagement data that I'm looking at, things like attendance, behaviors, participation. The right-hand side is all my proficiency data. So what are my averages on my assessments and assignments that I'm giving directly in Otus? Third-party content providers, if I'm assigning things on Khan Academy, or if we're integrating and importing data from your third-party tests like NWEA, MAP, AimsWeb, Park, whatever it would be. I can drill into all these unique data sets here to do some more item analysis on specific pieces. So if I just want to see what's behavior look like for this past semester, we can get a full breakdown of things that I'm noticing from a positive and negative perspective. All these labels here are things that you as a district can set up and, ask your teachers to keep track of, as well as teachers can create their own behavior recognitions. We can do an item analysis of what does our behavior look like by unique type. So if I can notice here that looks like messy workplace is the most frequently documented behavior that I'm seeing with my students, either as a principal, director of curriculum, or an individual teacher, we can see that and say, okay, we need to try to think of some ways that we can work in some organizational skills to the curriculum that right now that we're working on. The other big advantage here is we also will get all of your third-party data into these analytics tools as well. So whether you're using Park, AimsWeb, NWEA, whatever it is, teachers as well as administrators will be able to access reports of all those pieces in the same place. I'll start with NWEA as an example here. We get a breakdown for the growth comparison period for whatever results that you just got back. We can see individual strand scores if we need to. We can look at the district's mean RIT averages. We get a breakdown here in terms of NWA's definitions for levels on things like reading and math. A full breakdown as well with the individual RIT band scores. So, if I want to see who are these two students that are really struggling right now with their RIT band reading, we can do that. Or we can pop down here to the bottom and see student progress over time analysis the more times we give these tests. So if we want to track and see, is John Lester, showing improvement here over time with MAP or NWA or Park or whatever it might be, we have access to do that. Now, the most powerful piece that we really feel of the system is we're giving you, a full platform with a variety of options to gather data. We can then, once we're gathering all this data in one place, including your third-party testing, it's a lot more accessible, seamless, and efficient for teachers to do some of their own analysis on data instead of just getting those Park scores, looking at them twice a year, on your day-to-day, and then highlighting a couple of cells and shoving them in a drawer until they resurface next year. The piece here that we feel is powerful is that these reports are also all interactive as well, so that we can group students based on trends that we're seeing for differentiation and personalized learning. I'll give you a sample here. If we pop down here and if we're reviewing our math scores on NWEA, and we see we have these 3 students that really crushed it with NWEA, they're up here in their 260 RIT band on math. Now that we're pairing these reports in the same place of our learning and classroom management features, I can grab those 3 students and I can directly send some work their way on their bookshelf that Khan Academy recommends for folks that are in that RIT band for math. At the same time, if we pop over here to Park, I can come down here to do a breakdown of what my ELA testing looks like, and we can grab these 3 students that struggled with vocab on Park, and I can go place them in a group that right now they are, let's say, need some additional vocab help. So that tomorrow or next week, or when I'm thinking about what additional individual and personalized work or instruction that I need to give my students, I can find a Quizlet or build something or find something to help these 3 students with their vocab, place it on the bookshelf, and I can share it with them. Now, I could obviously share this with a full class, individual students, or I can share this just with this group of students that I've identified is really struggling with their vocab right now. So that's just a couple examples there of once we have all of the data in the same place of our assessment, learning management, and classroom management tools, now it's a lot more seamless and efficient for me as a teacher or as a district to not only look at data, but then also do something about it since it's paired with all this instructional technology in one place. Great. I think that was just about everything that I wanted to show from a demonstration standpoint. Now, one thing you might be thinking is this does seem like a lot of functionality, and that's very intentional. We like to say that we try not to build a system that's overwhelming for teachers, but teachers' jobs are already overwhelming. We're just trying to give them one platform to do everything that they want to do with devices or technology in the classroom, rather than needing to go look for 5 or 6 or 7 different apps, systems, and logins that that students are then going to be asked to juggle for 3 or 4 different teachers, depending on what they like to use. That being said, we do provide a couple different options in terms of feature packages, depending on the needs of a district. So, for some folks, it's really about data. Hey, we really just want to get our Park, our MAP, our AimsWeb, and our own local benchmark assessments in one place so that teachers have better visibility and access there. That's a great jumping off point. That's pretty, low weight, low pricing. Others will say, we're really focused on building digital benchmark assessments, so that we want to build our own assessments and pair that with data that we're collecting from Park and MAP so that we can look at those things side by side and run some analysis there. Others are up for, the full shebang-a-bang. So the LMS, digital assessment, and all of the data all in one place. So we give a few options depending on, what needs are filled, what needs aren't filled already by other providers, and what is an entry point that makes sense for a district, depending on what they already have in place and depending on what they would prioritize as a need.
Bernie here, before we leave the demo section, can you also
Yes.
provide a perspective from the student's point of view? You had indicated that students would also log in.
Absolutely. So, you noticed here, let me jump in as a student and we can take a look there. So when you think of Otus, there's potentially 4 different types of accounts, that you would have. Obviously, your teacher level accounts and student accounts. We also have administrative level accounts for you, so that admins can run analysis and see visibility into all of the local engagement and assessment data that teachers are collecting through the system. And then we also provide a parent level account. Not all districts decide to use that. Some say we're cool with parents, doing Power School already to check grades. But if parents want to see what their kids are working on, grade delivery in real time, that gives them a read-only version of what a student would see. So here I'm logged in as this hypothetical student like Ditka. And you can see, it looks very similar to a teacher's account. That's obviously intentional so that as teachers are describing where they're going, they're not looking at something completely different from the kids. And also so that in this day and age, it's going to end up being a lot of times that kids are actually teaching the teachers how to use some of the technology as well. But if I'm logged in here as Mike Ditka, just to think about, that example that I gave from the teacher's perspective, I can get a sense of what's going on in each of my individual classrooms by checking the bulletin board of announcements, due dates, things like that. We do integrate there with Google so that if you still wanted to use Google as your place to keep your assignments, you can do so. And then students can access those deadlines and due dates here in Otus as well. I can come to my lesson planning module. So if we have something with a due date, of the end of the week, looks like I've already completed that lesson, but we can kind of go through the directions that I'm expected to be working on today on the system. And then my bookshelf as a student is just going to be all of the resources that my teacher has curated for me. So, anything that here's all the math resources that my teacher has given me. Here's the ELA resources, or maybe some additional just for fun stuff that my teacher has given me, like this article from Newsella on robots eating pizza. If we keep going here, a good example here, I can answer those poll questions that are being asked of me. So here's one. This is a great way for teachers to collect little snapshots of formative and summative data or end of class if they like to do things like exit tickets to check for quick understanding and agreement. Which of the following had the greatest influence on the West? I'm going to say, let's just say it was the covered wagon. Oh, I've already answered this poll question once, so it won't let me do it again. I can keep my own blog here as well as see what my teacher or other folks are writing about. So if teachers are looking for a place to collaborate and to get students chatting and writing together, that's something that they potentially would use in another system like an EduBlogs or something like that. Is there anything else that you're curious to see here while I'm on a student level account?
No, I think maybe the assessments and that sort of thing. Do they have access to their own grade grids or graphs that show them how their progress might be going?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish I had more data here from a student's perspective. Since this is a demo account, we don't typically have a lot here that our fake students are actually doing. But if I come here to my assessments, this is where I would go, obviously, to take something that's been assigned to me, on a specific deadline. So here's this Revolution assignment that I need to get started on. As those grades are being finalized, if it was a multiple choice quiz or test, obviously, as soon as I submit that, that can be graded automatically and is available right here for me. If it's a writing assignment, then obviously my teacher would, take some time to go through those and grade those. And as soon as the grade's posted, it's visible and accessible for me here in the gradebook section.
Okay, but there isn't a longitudinal view of my progress over the time that I'm spending in this course or class?
Correct. That's a great question. It's something that our team has thought about in terms of more robust analytics that students would have access to. We've kicked around some of those ideas. At the end of the day, the decision right now has been to give teachers the permission and districts a little bit more control on when that data is visible. We don't currently have any place to automatically populate those similar type of analytics that a teacher or administrator would have access to.
I see. Okay, and different track on a separate question. You had mentioned integration with student information systems and other back-end systems. Is that a blanket statement, or you want to qualify that and say we work with which student information systems?
Sure. So we do provide an open API integration for other types of LTI compliant products and services. So most frequently, we use our API to connect with student information systems so that we can more seamlessly create accounts, roster Otus, and then a couple pieces of data that folks need in their SIS. Usually it's attendance and grades that are being automated here through Otus assessments. We do also, for other content providers, if there is the opportunity for that content provider to support an API, something like Khan Academy is a good example where we can sync with Khan Academy. So if your students are working on something here, that data will automatically, as you saw, be included in your analytics of Otus as well. So I would say, from a clarifying that it is an open API connection so that we can connect with other edtech systems and backends. Usually our product services team, when we're working with a new client, will get you hooked up with your SIS. And then if there are other content providers that you hope that we can work with, that's something we can explore. But at the end of the day, it usually comes down to whether that content, supports the integration on their end as well.
Right. And I think my question was really specifically in terms of integrations that maybe you've already done in
Sure.
With various, you mentioned PowerSchool 2 or 3 times in your presentation, but you didn't mention anything else.
Right. So I would say, Skyward. I'm trying to think of what are some other SISs that are common. Infinite Campus, Illuminate, eSchool Plus, SysK12. Those are probably the most frequently used SISs that we see folks coming across. We have about 40 SIS integrations that we've worked with so far. So, the chances are very good that the SIS that you use is supported. I have a full list of all those integration capabilities. If you're curious to take a look at it, I'd be more than happy to shoot it your way by email following up from today's session.
That would be nice. I think the core of the question kind of revolves around focusing on integrations that you've already done, with those being done, and recognizing the fact that many student information systems are actually a construction set that are defined during implementation.
Right.
My focus is, what does it normally take for you to do some sort of an integration like that with a school district that perhaps is using a student information system that you have a history of working with?
Sure. So, usually it's a process that takes a few days. Our support and tech team would link up with whoever the SIS administrator or tech contact at a specific district is that typically manages your SIS. There's some pieces of information that we need, obviously, to tap Otus into the API of the SIS. And then I don't know, unfortunately, I'm probably not the most well-equipped person to talk too much more technically about how that process works, other than our tech team works with your team over the course of a few days to collect some information and to, once access is granted to your system's SIS, then they work together to get it linked up.
No, that's actually perfect, right at the right level there.
Okay, gotcha.
So let's take the question actually to the next level. With that kind of an engagement as a necessity to initiate some sort of integration and working with the school district, is the structure of your program, including things like the fees for this sort of setup, the professional development requirements that may be around the user interface for the back end folks, the sys administrator and the other administrators at a district level versus the teacher community, which again has their own tier of PD requirements.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. So as far as a pricing structure and setup mechanism goes, this is a software as a service type of product. So there's an annual subscription to the product depending on what level of functionality that you use. We do require a one-time setup, support, and professional development fee. That's just the first year's additional cost on top of your subscription for working together to build the integrations with your other data and SIS infrastructure that you need. That's going to include ongoing support for, not just your first year, but as long as you use Otus, as well as an opportunity to do on-site professional development and trainings as well for teacher users. So that technical support is really something that we just lump into kind of your first year startup fees.
I understand, and this technical integration fee above and beyond the cost is determined by population size, or it's a flat fee?
It's more of a flat fee. The subscription is determined by the size of a district or organization. The setup fee is a flat fee that's determined by. Well, it's determined first and foremost by really two variables. Are we doing the SIS integration? Some folks opt not to, just because they want to keep it simpler to build accounts via just a CSV upload. And are we coming on site to set up some professional development sessions on the location, or are we going to do web-based? So it typically runs somewhere between $1,000 and $2,500.
Okay. Thank you. That's a great answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of a good segue while we're here. I'm looking at the time and seeing that it's about half past the hour, and I was hoping not to keep everybody busy for more than about 35 minutes or so. If you would like to see and hear more, obviously a great place to start is our website for resources, a feature package pricing calculator that's up there. Some of our own training videos that we have, or if you have unique questions that I can answer for you in more detail, my email is as simple as can be. It's just tim@otus.com. So if you'd like to see, a good example is a full list of SISs that we work with and things like that, if you don't mind shooting me a quick email after today with your contact information so that I can get those answers for you, that would be a great place to start. And then, apart from that, Jat, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, I'd like to open the floor for additional questions. So I think I heard somebody chime in, but
this is
yep.
This is Lisa.
Lisa. Yep.
The state of Illinois is exploring some competency-based learning programs that some school districts are doing as a pilot. Does your system support competency-based learning structure?
So as far as, and let me just clarify that the terminologies always can be a little different depending on what state you're thinking about. So from a competency standpoint, is that a reference to more of like a standards-based model for reporting in terms of with specific skill sets, approaching at or, near mastery, that type of grading model?
It is kind of that. It's kind of a blend that they could almost do their mastery of freshman English in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So it's kind of a blend of what they're doing. There's a couple different models out there that it's a pilot this year, or this coming school year, but I have a feeling, knowing our state, they tend to do a pilot one year and throw it out there for everybody the next year.
Sure.
Just say that out there, honestly.
Yeah. So when it comes to more of a competency or some folks would call that a standards-based approach from a reporting standpoint, any questions that you're building from an assessment standpoint. So if we wanted a digital assessment that was going to be competency-based, not traditional point type of scale from a reporting mechanism, anything that I am building here in the system, we can associate with either custom, state, or common core level standards. So for some people, they would create a question like this one that I have here, who's the best team in the NFL. I'm from Maryland, so I would say the Ravens. And as you're working on those type of questions, if I go to the edit piece here, you'll have an opportunity to link to any type of standards. So for some folks, they're going to work on Common Core, NGSS, or a state standard. You can also build your own custom scope of competency-based standards that you'd like to include there. So if I was building more of a competency-based assessment or question, once we have, the appropriate standards linked to the appropriate questions, once we analytics, get more of that standards-based viewpoint of performance. So if I was looking at, who are all my advisory students this year in terms of what competencies they've been assessed on, we get some data.
Well, that's pretty rich. Lisa, that's pretty good.
Yeah, or we can actually drill into a specific standard or competency that you've built out. So, this is a Common Core one, RFK4. If I wanted to look at a breakdown of how my students are doing on this, I can say, okay, great. Who are my 6 students that are at mastery versus who are my kids down here at the bottom that maybe need some additional skill work on that competency?
And those competencies, are those definitions of which level is what defined by the test it's in, or are those district driven, or?
So it's either
so like for Common Core, this one you have here, mastery is a score of what? Is it defined
so
in the system, or is it defined by the district?
Right. So the answer to that is kind of both. So when you're building your own questions, you define what is mastery, approaching mastery, so on and so forth. If you're using the questions that are pre-built, we do give you an item bank of standards-based questions already built in that you can query for. So if you wanted to say, show me all of the multiple choice questions that I have that have and I'll just look at the tags here, that are Common Core associated or that are Bloom's taxonomy skill, X, Y, or Z, you can query the system for those type of questions, and those would be pre-populated and pre-scored with what does mastery versus approaching mastery look like.
But it does sound like the key to what you were saying is that you're capable of building out whatever you can imagine in terms of making those relationships. The tools and the resources to do so are at your fingertips. But some things may be defined, but for the most part, the expectation is that you're going to be custom creating items.
Yeah, exactly. So if you were looking to build, your own competency-based assessments, quizzes from a reporting standpoint, instead of using the item bank, correct, you would use the building tools that are available. And like I mentioned, we give 60 different types of assessment items so that you can build stuff that's a lot deeper in terms of engagement than just multiple choice or true, false, or fill in the blank that you might be limited to. If you're looking to give online assessment elsewhere, you can give math questions that give scientific calculators. We can build graphing type of questions. You can highlight hotspots and things like that. So there's some really, really cool things that you can do here from a building standpoint. And then any questions that you build, like you saw, you can associate a competency, whether it's Common Core or your own kind of district's scale for what does competency mean for these skill sets. So that we can get you not only, point-based reports, grade-based reports, A, B, C, D, but then we can also have that standards-based viewpoint for skill sets as well.
Great. So we have another question from the chat. Have you looked at integrating with Microsoft's School Data Sync?
To be totally honest, I'm not familiar with Microsoft School Data Sync. I'll make a note of that to follow up with our development integration team to see if they have anything in the works there. So I'm happy to get back to you with that. We do integrate with Microsoft 360 if you use that for kind of your core, for kind of more of like your Google Classroom type of environment. But the specific Microsoft education data sync, I'll have to get back to you with some more information.
Don't feel bad. There's no one that usually knows what it is. That's the worst marketed Microsoft program I've ever heard in my life.
Okay, gotcha. I feel better now. I felt like I missed something there. So
No,
thanks
everybody's
for
missed that.
talking me off the ledge.
And honestly, we don't even know if it's going to have legs, and we've been interested in seeing whether that is, because it has potential to solve some major issues in school districts as if they put the power of Microsoft behind, because nobody else is doing that data side of it that rich that they're say that they're going to do. So we just
Makes sense.
throw it out there pretty much to everybody.
Makes sense.
So Tim, kind of a three-part question. How many districts are you guys in right now? Number one. Number two, what's your pricing model look like? And then number three, is there an opportunity for kind of a try and buy or pilot? So kind of kick the tires, light the fires, feel it out before kind of committing any real dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So as far as our current user base, we have just about 60 districts nationwide that are using Otus in their full district. This product first started as kind of a free LMS type of product about 5 years ago when our co-founders Chris and Pete first started playing with the idea of building something that was going to be more robust from functionality. Just last year, it was only in March of last year that we took this out to the market, at the district and building type of level from a support standpoint there. So within the last just over 12 months, about 60 folks nationwide are using it. Obviously, the majority of that user base is here local to us in Illinois, since we're based in Chicago, just down in the West Loop. Probably about 16, 17 districts in Illinois, and then the rest kind of scattered from California to Florida to Massachusetts all over.
Who are your big ones?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of some names off the top of my head. Killdeer. I can never remember the numbers of the districts off the top of my head. Park Ridge.
That's Swanson, the tech guy there.
Skokie Golf School District. LaGrange 105. There's a handful. I'm more than happy to send you like a list of folks here in Illinois. If you don't mind, just shoot me an email to remind you to do so. I can get you just a PDF.
That'd be great. Are you going up to the IETL conference in June 15th in Chicago?
If it's right here in our backyard in Chicago, there's a very good possibility that we'll be there. That's a question that I'll have to relay over to our marketing folks for our conference schedule this summer.
Okay.
I'll make a note of that, but we always try to be present at the things that are right here in our backyard.
Well, I'll try to send you some of those different ones that are going on in Illinois, just because, a lot of us serve on different boards for Illinois competing educators. We're doing, I'm awesome. Within the local COSN chapter. That's what I was talking about, June 15th.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be fantastic. We definitely would love to take a look at a list like that.
Yeah, and we have a big downstate thing going on too down here in Bloomington. So
very cool.
So I'll share these out with you.
Perfect. Let me get to the other couple parts of your question. One of them was the pricing structure. So It is a cost per student type of model that we use. It's not a genuine, hey, you have 1,200 kids times $5. It's a tiered pricing structure depending on that basically puts you into a bucket from pricing. And we actually do have a little pricing calculator up on our website. If you just go to otus.com, down there at the bottom, you'll see a little pricing section here under features, and it will bring you to this screen that I had up before, where you plug in your enrollment, you play around with the numbers in terms of the different level of package that you're interested in, whether it's just, third-party data warehousing, the assessment capabilities plus data, or kind of that full threefold LMS plus assessments plus data type of setup.
That's slick. That looks good.
Can you just throw in like 5,000 in?
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look. 5,000
for Otus.
Couple. So 24.9 about.
Do you have any purchasing agreements with the state of Illinois yet?
We do have a handful, and that's kind of building on the third part of your question there about try before buy. We always support a try before buy type of decision-making model where we give you the system for 3, 4, 5 months, kind of depending on what time of year it is, and when you would need to be making a decision on a subscription. and then let you, grab 5 or 6 teachers and a handful of admin accounts, or grab a building, or let's try this with all of our 5th graders because I know that they're in need of something like this. We'll support you just like a paid customer for the duration of your pilot. And, that's a great chance to play, see if it fits into, your needs, and then better inform a purchasing decision for, a
That's a
follow-up.
great way to go. That's nice.
Yeah, so that's something that we're always excited to support, especially here locally in Illinois, where obviously, we want the product to grow obviously nationwide, but we've developed a lot of these features, frankly, from our early adopters who, just started with the system about a year ago in March and April. So we're always looking for that constant feedback. And there's a couple things that we're actually releasing in July that were developed in conjunction with a pair of districts here in Illinois. One of them is our query analytics. So with all of this data that we're now able to aggregate, you can ask the system questions like, show me all my students that are below 150 on MAP that have been absent 5 times and that whose local assessment average for English is below an 80%. And it will spit out for you all the folks that meet that criteria. So that's kind of a tool that we've developed to help folks with their RTI programs to identify students that are at risk. And then also for placement, if you have students on the flip side that are kicking your own curriculums, but help those teachers understand that they need to find some other work to challenge them a little bit more seamlessly. So that's one piece. Another would be kind of our comparative analytics feature that's being released in July as well. So if you just wanted to say, I want to see what Park versus MAP versus my own local assessments look like in one screen, one dashboard, define what students you want to look at, define the time period of records you want to look at, and just check off those boxes and it will show you.
Great. We have another question coming in from the chat. Is documentation available for your API mechanism? For example, where we want to integrate with a state build system.
Yeah, that's, I believe we do have a couple PDFs for our own API level documentation, and I'm happy to forward your way, Scott. So I will grab your contact info, or if you want to send me a note to my email address, tim@otus.com, I'm happy to share those resources with you following up from today.
Okay, one final question for me. Obviously, software as a service, where does this information live? And what are the controls to manage things like life cycle and custody agreements for data that are held in your custody?
Right, absolutely. That's always a concern when you're thinking about privacy. So it is obviously a cloud-based solution. We use Amazon Web Services as our cloud provider, which is, an encrypted, probably one of the most secure cloud providers that there is right now. From a legal standpoint, fully FERPA, HIPAA, and COPA compliance is built into our service agreements that we have with districts, as well as from a legal standpoint that you own the data, we are just the hosts for you. So that's kind of, my spiel from a privacy type of standpoint. Is there anything that I missed there in terms of privacy that you were curious about?
The mechanics or controls or oversight mechanisms that are in place to manage life cycle of data. Obviously, when we open an agreement with you, we provide you data. At the termination of that agreement, how is that managed and ensured that data is purged or
and returned to you? Right.
How is that done?
Got it. So that's, to be honest, a great question that I don't have the answer to off the top of my head, other than it's built into our service agreements and our student privacy policy, which is available here with our terms of service under the support section of our website. So if you're curious to read more details about that, all of our terms of service are available there, and I can grab one of our tech folks following up from today to make sure that they can highlight exactly what section discusses that and forward it your way.
Okay, maybe I should more focus my question as in the last round. The question that I have is that you're actually enhancing data. You're providing feedback to the district that is of more value. So you've created new data. Is that data available at the end of the contract for the district to consume and use if they so desire?
Right. The simple answer to that question is yes, is that from a purging standpoint, we do have mechanisms in place for you to download and essentially save via CSV file formats all of the data that you have created in Otus. I don't know exactly how that process looks from my own experience with it, just because we haven't really needed to cross that bridge too much, being a relatively new and young product. But let me see if I can get you some more feedback on, and if you need more technical details about what that looks like.
Okay, I think that was great for the presentation, a good explanation as it stands. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Hey,
Thanks for the
so
feedback.
Tim, I got one more question. We do a lot of these different webinars, and there's a lot of like crossovers between LMSs and data reporting tools and those kind of things. Where do you guys classify yourselves in? And this is just a general question, not shopping around or anything.
Right.
And who are the other folks that you're in the league with?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And frankly, when the inspiration for this product first started a few years ago, it was first classified as an LMS. So Schoology, Canvas, those would be the two that come to my mind off the top that have the biggest share of the market from an LMS standpoint. As we've continued to add functionality, things like the more robust digital assessment tools and all of the data warehousing tools, we kind of feel that Otus doesn't exactly fit into one of those buckets in terms of, is it an LMS, is it a classroom management system, is it a digital assessment provider, or is it a data warehouse? Frankly, because we provide all of those features in one place.
Yep.
So if you were looking at our marketing material, the term that we actually use is student performance platform. And that's a term, frankly, that we invented because, the more we built, the more we felt that it doesn't really fit into that label of just an LMS or just a data warehouse. Some of our users will, use the system to fill those needs, and they will use Otus strictly as an LMS or strictly to warehouse third-party data or strictly as a digital assessment engine. But since we do give you the opportunity to use all of those things, we try not to label ourselves in any of those kind of squared off buckets.
Okay. I'm just curious from the other folks out there what the comparison lineup here would be with like ESOL or those other kind of pieces, those things we've seen before too, but.
Yeah, definitely adjacent to ESOL, but there's probably a little bit of overlap, not too much though.
Yeah.
I think that this product is more like Axure, or is that the right name? We looked at another product on the webinar series that also ingested data, provided warehouse capability, analytics, and reporting.
Was that Authentica?
I think it was Neo.
Oh, Neo. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But we've looked at one or more of them that are similar from the perspective of consuming data and providing analytics, as well as LMS features and maybe assessments. That I think is the differentiator here. Not just consuming feedback from assessments, but being able to create them and delivering them.
Okay. So we owe you a couple things. Some of the things are going on in Illinois that we know about as well, so that you might want to be able to connect up to it. And I think Scott is going to individually reach out too. So.
Yeah, on the API front. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. If you guys have, I'm trying to keep notes here of where questions are coming from. But if you have something specific that I can do some of my own homework for getting you some more information for, if you don't mind shooting me a quick email reminder to tim@otus.com, that would be great.
And one more thing, for those states like that are collecting data, is there that connection back and forth between, I may have missed this part because I had to turn it down a little bit in the beginning, any EdFi connection as well, or is that?
Yeah, EdFi is something that has been discussed with our team. Frankly, the feedback that I have heard from our own technical developers is that EdFi in theory sounds great, but it's really difficult to actually work in practice.
Is that true, Scott?
Well, just ask DoubleLine.
I guess I'm not the first person that maybe has told you guys that, or maybe you've discovered on your own. So from a compliance and from an integration standpoint with something like EdFi, we have the capabilities to do it. It hasn't become a priority for our development team as of yet, frankly, just because it's only come up a couple of times with our potential users that would want to explore something like that.
All right. Well, this is Jat. So before we conclude, two questions. One, who are your channel partners, or do you have any channel partners in Illinois or any other states? particularly
Yes.
in Nebraska?
Sure. So to be honest, we don't really have a ton of channel, or not that I know of. We don't have any channel partners right now, other than doing some co-marketing with organizations, obviously like you guys, Illini Cloud. We have some other product type of partners that we work in conjunction with, like Thrively, and I'm trying to think who's our digital assessment folks that we work with. Learnosity, if you're familiar with them, as well as Inspect, who we get our item bank from. But from channel partners perspective, we've really just tried to keep those conversations here in Illinois with Illini Cloud, ILTPP, as well as doing some work with local RESAs in specific states. From Nebraska, not really any right now that we have in Nebraska.
Okay, great. And then lastly, longevity is always a key question when you're talking about ed tech and especially startups. How are you guys bootstrapped and funded, and what's that look like?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously that's a great question. We are a startup, and whenever we're entering an agreement with someone, they want to know that we're going to be here more than just a year or two. This whole product is it is funded privately with Andy Bloom's organization. If you're familiar with his work that he does in ed tech. Well funded from the ground up. I obviously can't share details about in terms of runway or funding, but there are a lot of resources that have been committed to the product from the early days on this first installation through continuing to build out a product that's more district friendly as well. Other than we are well funded, privately owned right now, that's probably the long and the short of what I can provide.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time today. I know we're on the hour, so if anybody has any further questions, feel free to email the meeting invite lead list or reach out to Tim or myself directly. Other than that, thank you everyone for your participation, and thank you, Tim, for taking the time to take us through the great stuff you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jat. I appreciate your time to organize this, and everybody that was able to join today. Thanks for your time. I know this is a busy time of year with the last few weeks of school really starting to wind down here. So thanks for making some time, and look forward to hearing from you if you have additional questions or if there's some additional resources that we can provide for you.
Fantastic. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Tim. Thanks,
All right,
Jat.
great. Bye.
Thank you.